Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, we're all racing towards the holiday season right now, and some of you listening will have one eye on all that shiny must-have tech that we want, but not necessarily need. So I'm curious, is there anything that you've got your eye on? Any new tech, gadgetry? I'm looking for a little inspiration. So whether it's a cheap and cheerful gadget or a huge commitment like a Peloton bike, let me know what you're interested in getting this year by emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. Now, today's guest started a retail intelligence company back in 2012 as a small startup on a mission to empower retailers to grow in the age of Amazon, all by using data-driven competitive insights. So fast forward 8 years later, an intelligence node has built the world's largest retail product database, which feeds the growth of more than 600 billion in retail revenue globally. So his name is Sanjeev Sularia, and I've invited him on the podcast today to discuss how the global pandemic has created a permanent shift in the consumer shopping experience, and also the strategies that retailers should look at implementing to adapt to this new reality. And we might even throw in a few predictions for what 2021 will look like too, because we are at that time of the year. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Mumbai, where Sanjeev is waiting to speak with us right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Sanjeev. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me. So I'm Sanjeev Sularia. I'm the CEO and co-founder for Intelligence Node. And we are a retail analytics company that focuses on three legs of serving our clients, which is around pricing, assortment, and product visibility. What we do differently to the larger landscape is we bring in a lot of competitive data insights into our decision-making across all those three unique data points. And we've developed the world's largest product retail database, which tracks north of 1 billion unique products across the globe to help us deliver those insights for our clients.
Fantastic. Now, one of the reasons I invited you on the podcast today is there is a lot of talk at the moment around how the pandemic has acted as almost as a digital accelerant. But can you tell me a little bit more about how it has also created a permanent shift in that consumer shopping experience? Because we're seeing so many big changes, aren't we, right now?
I think it's always been on the cards. If you see the investments from the large retailers, brands, manufacturers, as well as the venture capital community that's been quite bullish on fulfilling that consumption appetite for shoppers all over the world. They've all been betting on that digital transition to happen and, e-commerce to become double-digit percentage of total retail. And it's always on the cards. When is that going to happen? Are consumers changing? Do we look at Gen Z and millennial shoppers differently from other generations? And suddenly, the pandemic came along and it's fast-tracked all of that. If I take a US market example, it took 10 years for e-commerce as a percentage of total retail to go from 5.7% to 16%, between 2009 and 2019. And then 8 weeks into the pandemic, it jumped another 10%, is now at 27% of total retail. And that is coming from that change shopper itself. I think a lot of people during the pandemic have either shopped online for the first time or at least gotten over the hurdle of being comfortable with it. And I don't think that behavior is going away at any point. I think the retailers that thrived during the pandemic have, leveraged the O2O capabilities, the omni-channel experience, and have really taken on the mandate to further spoil this digitally transformed consumer to pampering them with same-day deliveries, next-day deliveries. So this is a hyper-evolved digital shopper that expects a lot. It expects fair prices. It expects wide selection of products, great delivery promise, great after-sales services. So, to shamelessly quote Steve Jobs from his 1998 Business Week interview, where he said, people often don't know what they want till you show it to them. That probably worked back then. It's a very different shopper here now. They know more than the store assistant when they walk into a store because they've done extensive digital research on the product that they want. They're comparing prices. They're looking for product availability. So they once they come into shop, they've actually done a lot more than what the retail ecosystem is ready to respond to. And I don't think this newfound behavior is going away anytime soon.
I completely agree with you. And I also agree when you said that we've all seen this coming for a great deal of time. And I suspect everyone listening would have seen this coming too. But one thing that I do remember, especially here in the UK, back in, I think it was April, May time, there's a big store, a global store as well, called Primark, which you may have heard of. And they went from doing, I think it was £650 million a month to zero because they had no online presence, which is just insane, especially when you look back now. But I'm curious, what kind of strategies do you think retailers should implement to adapt to this new reality?
I think first and foremost, let's start with hygiene before we start, making predictions around what's going to make them relevant for the next foreseeable 2 to 3 decades. I think just at a hygiene level, if that shopper is always comparing, they have mobile phones and digital access is almost a given, right? To not have that is an outlier. To have that is hygiene. If they have the ability at the tips of their fingers to figure out who else has got a product similar to what you're trying to sell, whether it's online or offline, what price points are they selling at? They can discover deals on social media. They can go read up product descriptions on search engines, speak to peers and get recommendations, read reviews on marketplaces to see what others are saying about a product that they previously purchased. With them having access to that information at the tips of their fingers, for large retailers, a lot of department stores, retailers, Primark was an example, JCPenney, Macy's, J.Crew, Victoria's Secrets, established household names were caught napping, where they thought that, look, there is a shopper that's loyal to me and they're going to keep coming to me no matter what. This is a reality check. It's more than a reality check. It's an existential crisis. We've seen about 44 bankruptcies already filed in the US, and I think that's the tip of the iceberg. I think what they need to do is understand that having that flagship corner store on the high street could have been a differentiation 2 decades ago. It isn't anymore. Even having a website might have worked 15 years ago. It doesn't work anymore. What kind of responsiveness do you have on the website? What assortment are you listing in the age of Amazons and marketplaces who can carry hundreds of millions of products? What is the pricing parity that you're showcasing? What kind of product descriptions are you putting out there? When you talk about someone like a Primark or the fashion landscape, what are you doing from a sourcing manufacturing perspective? How quickly can you turn around assortments? Zara and H&M have taken the whole merchandising game to a different level where, fashion retailers used to work or brands used to work on 2 seasons out, 3 seasons out. Now they're turning around assortments every 2 weeks. I think it's knowing that whatever ecosystem got you to the success of millions, even billions of pounds and dollars every single month might have worked to a certain point. But does that proof you against changes like the pandemic or the change consumer itself? 100% not. You have to change with the times, understand who the shopper is, and cater to them rather than expecting a shopper to carry on coming to you with whatever you have to offer, with you refusing to, not even soft signals, hard signals that shoppers are leaving behind. If you don't want to read them and put a shut eye towards a trend that, as we spoke about, has been knocking on the doors for years. It's been accelerated by the pandemic, but even if the pandemic wasn't here, this could have happened over the next 5 to 10 years. It's just been fast-tracked, and it's happened in a matter of weeks and months.
And if we're now approaching, of course, the time of year where every futurist and analyst is making predictions for the following year, one thing I'm reminded of, especially this year, is that if I'd asked you for your predictions in November 2019, I suspect that you would never have guessed how 2020 would have turned out. But I've got to ask, do you have any predictions for what retail will look like in 2021 and beyond? Is there anything that springs to mind there?
No, for sure. I wouldn't have predicted this happening in 2020 for sure. A
Yeah.
year back, I wouldn't even be predicting that I'll be becoming a dad, which I am. So I'm horrible with my predictions. So, but I think I think the writing's on the wall now. I think it'll be still a couple of quarters before specifically lifestyle categories and non-essential categories get to pre-pandemic revenue scale. But omni-channel and digital transformation aren't just a good to have; it's a must-have. I think, and by digital transformation, again, I don't mean just setting up a website. I think there's a change where you need to have a single view of the customer, agnostic of the channel that they're coming to you, and you need to have a single view of the inventory. And this is where the retailers that have survived and thrived during the pandemic are the ones that allow you to buy online and pick up in store or have the curbside delivery, could convert a lot of stores that were non-performing into dark stores and leverage the supply chain efficiencies when pure play e-commerce folks could not ship a product halfway across a country due to restrictions. So I think leveraging both online and offline. At no point am I saying brick and mortar is going away. It's still a great asset. It's a great real estate for shoppers to experience with products, have the touch and feel, buy into a brand philosophy, but at the same time, they want to do all of those things with the aid of technology. I think that's one part on where omnichannel retailing would have to become a norm. I think having backups on how you source, how you manufacture, there'll be huge supply chain disruptions. I think we've seen this with the marketplace world, the grocery world, where same day delivery, next day delivery, you can schedule when you want a certain product delivered, is another expectation that customers would have from every single category. We'll see more and more automation of warehouses, robotics coming in, auto fulfillment, picking, packing, shipping coming in. And at the same time, I think we'll see a lot of technology deployment on making sure that you also meet the customer's demands on having the right product stocked up in the right sizing, color, variant, at the right price point, at the right time. It's just a hyper aware and very demanding shopper that you're catering to. From pure technology adoption, what we've seen with large retailers is going into slow POC modes and then developing something themselves. When it takes too long and there's a technology first competitor that is beating you at your own game, then you sort of bring in the external help, consultants, services players, and try and add bells and whistles to what you've created internally, to finally, when you buy a piece of technology and then combine all of them and end up creating a digital Frankenstein. I think it's time that everyone takes notice that on-prem installations, heavy consulting services, technology mandates that run for quarters to years aren't the answer to your problems. You need to wake up now. You need to be ready to adopt innovation, cutting-edge technology. And even during pandemic, when your revenues are down, you need to start spending now to future-proof yourself, rather than wait 2 more quarters for the revenue to come in first and then spend. In an ideal world, you would always want to be paid first for anything that you're doing and then deliver upon the product or the service or the promise that you made to whoever the consumer on the end side is. But this is a paradigm shift on how consumers have moved, how competitors have moved, and I think all that spending needs to happen today.
And I think that's a great opportunity to introduce some of the great work that you're doing with Intelligence Node. But for people tuning into our conversation today and hearing about you and what you do for the first time, can you just bring them up to speed with what Intelligence Node is and the kind of problems you're solving with technology for businesses?
So I think a brief introduction would be, we're an AI-led real-time retail intelligence platform, and we empower businesses to drive product-level profitability and grow margins using data-driven competitive insights. How we go about doing that is we monitor pretty much every single product, and we look at over 1 billion of them globally on where is this product currently available, what's the price, what's the promotion, what is the stock status, and what's the search engine visibility. We monitor all those points, and we look at about 1,400 plus retail categories, north of 200,000 unique brands, and we collect and process this data globally in 29 different languages as well. And what we help our clients, which is retailers, marketplaces, brands, and manufacturers, is to optimize their own businesses on 3 fronts: It's getting the right price, getting the right assortment, and getting the right product visibility.
And one of the reasons I invited you on the podcast today was after coming across Intelligence Node's consumer survey, which revealed that consumers are eager to shop, but more cautious about how they spend their money, especially as we approach the holiday season. So I've got to ask, can you share some of the key findings from that report?
So we spoke to about 6,000 consumers over the course of 9 months, from the start of the holiday season, the tariff wars specifically between US and China, the beginning of the pandemic, the big e-grocery boom, the issues around counterfeiting, pricing violations, and then now when some sort of recovery started. And I think what we got at the start of the pandemic was only 31% of shoppers were buying online. And now, that number has gone up to about 60% of consumers rely more on online shopping than they did before the pandemic. And about 82% of these shoppers would continue buying online even when stores are fully open. So I think that is the big shift that has happened, which has resulted in the big e-commerce numbers going up as well. I think the other thing that we've seen is 94% of shoppers at some point in their journey do a price comparison on where else is this product available and what price point. So I think that's becoming a critical factor where Gen Z and millennial shoppers by primary nature are comparative shoppers. So if brands and retailers aren't really comparing, then at a hygiene level, you're 2 steps behind the consumer itself. I think some other things that came in, 41% of consumers said they are very likely to take advantage of summer sales. I think there is economic pressures on everyone across the board, irrespective of the income bracket that they come from. So deals would be sort of here to stay, and we would expect consumers to wait for the big deal days or even weeks to come along to get that consumption appetite rolling back for one more time. Interestingly, around the whole counterfeiting thing, which is becoming massive, the price gouging during the top of the pandemic for specifically essential categories like masks and other categories. We're also seeing a lot of pricing violations, specifically around the marketplace models. We've seen Nike delist themselves off Amazon for that very same fear. Amazon themselves in their shareholders notice have said that there's increasing concern around unauthorized sellers listings products that they never should have access to, violating store prices, counterfeits being rolled out. And the onus really lies on the brands and marketplaces, because what we found from the consumers, there's a big change from the start of the pandemic to now where they're more willing to buy a counterfeit product knowing that it's a counterfeit because they're getting a pricing advantage. Those are some broad highlights, and the whole report is available for download for free on intelligencenode.com.
And I'll leave a link on the blog post that accompanies this podcast just so people can browse through that survey themselves. But I'm curious, was there anything in that survey that surprised you?
Actually not. We've been big advocates of this changed consumer behavior. And I think, the results that we are seeing out of the pandemic or the responses that we got from the shoppers, that uptick in online shopping, I think we've been advocates of that for many years now.
One of the things I always try and do on this Daily Tech podcast is, learn about the new solutions and how companies are solving real problems for businesses with technology. But I also want to find out a little bit more about the very human story behind any business. And in your case, you started a retail intelligence company in 2012 as a small startup with a mission to empower retailers to grow in this age of Amazon, all by using data-driven competitive insights. But can I ask that you share that story with everyone listening today, and also any lessons that you learned along the way?
Still learning, for sure. I think the story it's probably a melting pot of everything that I've done in my life before this that led to Intelligence Node. Personally, for me, this is my 4th startup involvement. I started my career out of the UK, and I was part of a hedge fund that was working in the foreign exchange space where you're changing prices at the 5th decimal place every microsecond, and then went on to set up 2 e-commerce businesses, one in the multi-brand luxury space and one a fast fashion private label. And I think initially, just saw retail from a pricing lens and saw, were there any comparables on what capital markets was doing versus how retail was approaching its pricing problem. And, we saw a very, very large fragmented vendors landscape, big consultants working on bespoke pricing strategy work, very, very large services landscape, working on customized solutioning for a particular category, a particular geography, a particular type of SKU. And then, there was the birth of machine or software-led pricing coming to that landscape as well. But I think at a first principle level, when I saw that, we saw something missing, a fundamental piece missing from the decision making, which was that the consumer always has an option to shop somewhere else. And that is what was reminiscent of what happened to capital markets as well, where they would decide on their pricing based on internal risk and liquidity positions, a lot of intuitions coming from internal leaders on how to price, what to price, how much risk appetite to have. And then suddenly all that was taken away and it became a very market-led pricing approach. Algorithms took over who were predicting how a certain category, a certain market moves, where is competition pricing, and science came in and replaced intuition and internal data, internal rules and intuition stating what you need to price as versus mathematics and science. And that's exactly what we wanted to bring to retail. The trouble was, unlike capital markets, there was no Bloomberg data feed that you could just piggyback off and say, here's the market where it is, and let me now overlay my internal data to get to a smart price. And that's what we went out to create and have been able to do to a certain extent, is create that single competitive database as the pricing and the assortment benchmark for the whole world.
And fast forward 8 years, and Intelligence Node went on to build the world's largest product database, which feeds the growth of more than $600 billion in retail revenue globally, which is just staggering. But I've got to ask, what is your vision for the road ahead? And also, is there any advice that you would leave to any startup founders that could be listening to your story anywhere in the world today?
I think the vision is that we want to start helping our clients optimize every part of the digital buying journey. Right from when a shopper discovers a product or a promotion on it, to when they go, reading deeper into it, experiencing the product, doing side-by-side comparisons, finding out which product to buy based on peer recommendations, reviews, ratings, to finally finding that right product at the right price point. We want to start influencing that entire digital buying journey and helping our customers, not only win a lot of market share, but consumers also getting the best price for the product all the time when they go out and shop. And that's the big vision for us, and that's what we're chasing. Not just do individual pieces of optimization, but help an entire business optimization from every single moving point of the digital shopper's buying journey. I think in terms of lessons for startup founders starting out, whether you're on a tech business or a non-tech business, it's always about people. It's who do you have join you in that journey? Because it can be a long, tedious, difficult journey. So make sure you surround yourself with people who you think are not just smarter than you, but people you can, work on a day-to-day basis. It's finding that right people is crucial. And if you're just starting off, make sure you're ready to become an accountant, a lawyer, a business person, a salesperson, and the office cleaner all in one go. Because I think you need to wear multiple hats every single day. But essentially, I couldn't lay more stress on the real success is not whether you go on to create $1 billion of shareholder wealth or deliver to a lot of clients. All those things are very important when you go down that path. Specifically, if you decide to grow inorganically and have external investors come in, that's a massive responsibility towards them to create shareholder equity. But probably the sweetest part of the success is if you are able to create more entrepreneurs along the way. When they leave you, they don't leave you to go and join competition or somewhere else. They actually go start something on their own. With 7 billion plus people all over the world, no government, all this debate about who's going to win the US election, no government, no president can create jobs for every single person across the globe. So I think if we can create more entrepreneurs who, find unique solutions to problems around them and can relate to them, and in that process go on to create more employment and more entrepreneurs along the way, that's probably the secret to solving the unemployment crisis around us.
Love that, and a beautiful moment to end on. But before I do let you go, for anyone that would like to find out more information about Intelligence Node or the survey, if they want to download and have a look through that, or even contact a member of your team, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. Our website is www.intelligencenode.com. And you can come find us on Twitter at Big Data Node. That's Big Data NODE. Also, there's a regular column that I write for the Forbes Tech Council. So, if you want to read up more on my personal views impacting the world of retail today, please feel free to follow that as well.
Well, I'll add all those links, including the links to your Forbes column too, on the blog post that will accompany this. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to come on here and not just discuss how the global pandemic has created this permanent shift in the consumer shopping experience and the strategies retailers should implement to adapt to this new reality, but also for sharing your story as well and your particular journey in tech. It's so insightful and especially useful for other startup founders. But again, more than anything, just thank you for joining me today and sharing all that with everyone. Thanks again.
My pleasure, Neil. It's been an absolute pleasure.
There were so many big talking points from that interview, such as why consumers are eager to shop, but more cautious about how they spend their money, especially during this holiday season. And also data from Intelligence Node's report that revealed patterns in consumer shopping habits leading up to and during the COVID-19 pandemic, and ultimately how convenience and selection stores are paving the way for pricing optimization and why retailers should follow suit. And there's so much gold in what Sanjeev was saying during that podcast as well about how we've all got price comparisons on our phone now. We're always looking for a better deal. But let me know your thoughts on the findings in that report and any aspect of our conversation today. And also, I want you to throw in your insights, not to mention what tech gadgets you're going to be treating yourself to over the holiday season. And if there is anything you've got your eye on, there's a great thing I use on Amazon called Camel, I think it's called, where you pretty much put in any product that you're interested in purchasing. It's like a Google Chrome extension, and it'll give you a price alert when that item drops in price. Not only that, it'll also let you look at the last 12 months of prices and let you see how that price has gone up and down throughout the year, so you don't get tricked into one of those Black Friday deals when you can see it's been the same price for the last 6 months all along. So there's my Neil's Deals Black Friday tip for you all. But that's it for today. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.